If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
For The World Today, this is James O'Neill. Belgium announced it will deploy soldiers to Brussels to combat escalating drug gang violence, largely tied to North African groups like the Morocco Mafia. Interior Minister Bernard Quinton said the Army's presence would restore public confidence as gangs no longer fear police but still fear soldiers. Mixed police-military patrols will target Brussels and other affected cities, including Antwerp and Ghent. Shootings have surged, with 57 victims this year, while arrests have tripled. Prosecutors urge tougher prison controls and faster deportations. The move mirrors U.S. National Guard deployments in crime hotspots. The FBI and American Bankers Association have warned that AI-generated deepfakes are fueling scams, with losses from fraud exceeding $50 billion since 2020. Criminals increasingly impersonate family members, officials, or celebrities through manipulated video, audio, or images to trick victims into sending money or information. Red flags include blurred facial features, off-sync audio, unnatural voices, or urgent emotional manipulation. Elderly individuals are especially vulnerable to deepfake phishing scams. The global economic impact is expected to reach $40 billion by 2027. Lawmakers have introduced bipartisan legislation to combat AI-enabled fraud and better protect American consumers. Thousands of demonstrators marched through Paris on Saturday, demanding President Emmanuel Macron's resignation and France's withdrawal from the EU. Macron's approval ratings have plunged to record lows amid budget deficits and unpopular austerity plans, with 80% of citizens expressing distrust. Protesters carried Frexit signs and opposed arms deliveries to Ukraine. Prime Minister François Bayrou, facing a no-confidence vote Monday, has proposed major cuts to jobs, pensions, and welfare, which critics say prioritize military spending. Unions plan wider strikes under the slogan "Let's block everything" later this week. Over 300 South Korean workers detained in a massive federal immigration raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia will be released and repatriated, South Korea announced. The September 4th operation, the largest workplace raid in Homeland Security investigation's history, arrested 475 people, mostly South Korean nationals. Video showed agents lining up and shackling detainees. The plant, a Hyundai LG Energy joint venture to build EV batteries, is one of Georgia's largest economic projects. Workers were sent to a detention center in Folkestone. South Korea expressed concern and regret, sending diplomats to the site. U.S. authorities said the investigation is ongoing with no charges yet filed. Lucy Connolly, British mother jailed for a year over a tweet, announced at Reform UK's annual conference that she plans to work with Nigel Farage's party on justice reform. Introduced as Britain's favorite political prisoner, Connolly described her experience in prison and argued that most female inmates need housing, rehab, and mental health support rather than incarceration. She criticized the judicial backlog and said her harsh sentence was politically motivated after riots linked to a mass stabbing. Reformers suggested passing Lucy's law to allow reviews of unjust sentences. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke about the latest Senate hearing face-off against Democratic lawmakers.
In some cases, millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry, so they don't want to hear the answers to the questions that they ask me. They want to make a little speech and then shut me down. But they can't deny the fact that we did worse than COVID. That the CDC is a broken agency. We did worse in COVID than any country in the world. We have 4.2% of the world's population. We have 20% of the world's COVID deaths. We literally we're the worst team in the league.
This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
So I really like the Subaru. Very manly.
It is manly. My mom's drive one.
Well, but before I sign anything, I have to ask, what's the safety rating on that beast?
No worries. It's really important to ask good questions about big life decisions. This vehicle is top rated in safety.
Great. Final question. The fuzzy dice on the rearview mirror included?
I'll throw them in. Just for you, pal.
Deal. Excuse me. I heard a variety of these Altoids have been recalled. Are these good to go?
We got rid of all the bad ones last week, so they're good.
Well, sorry to bother you.
No bother at all, man. It's really, really important to be really aware of what you put into your body.
Hey, that's what I always say.
Me too.
Up top! Well, see you later.
Well, Tony, everything came back normal. You are as healthy as a healthy black man. Okay, now let's inject you with this vaccine and you'll...
Whoa. What's that?
Oh, it's just a normal vaccine. That's nothing to worry about. If you just roll up your sleeve, we'll just get this shown.
Whoa, wait. Can we talk about this? Look, I'm not some anti-science weirdo. I'd like to ask questions and know what's going into my body.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
You're not one of those crazy conspiracy theorists that I read about online, right?
Oh, no. Look, I ask questions about everything that pertains to my health and safety. Maybe I'll get the jab, but I'd just like to know what's in it. Has it been peer reviewed?
Hello, this is Dr. Lewis. I need immediate backup in exam room 7. We've got a conspiracy theorist in here. He's armed with an open mind and he's very dangerous. Help! He's really fast! Just asking questions, Tony! Time for your shot, Tony! Tony! I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I just wanted to do more research on that, and when Trump was fast wait. You're skeptical because of Trump's involvement?
I mean, well, no, Trump, no, MAGA.
What? I totally understand that. Why didn't you lead with it? Oh, yeah, false alarm. False alarm, everybody, false alarm. Look, I get it, okay. Let's just get you down to bill pay and get you on out of here. Look, I'm so sorry about all of that prison break, running down the hallway thing, but you know what? You can't be too careful. There's a lot of crazies out there. A lot of crazies.
Okay, so I just go that way and make a right?
Yeah, that's what you, yeah. Have a good day.
Thanks, Doc. Bye.
It would be funny if it weren't true, but the truth is scary because the truth is that all vaccines carry with them significant health risks that your doctor won't tell you about. But no need to fear. The 6th annual Vaccine Safety Awareness Marathon airs September 13th and 14th, 2025, presented by We the Patriots USA. This 24-hour event features live interviews and interactive Q&As with the world's leading physicians, scientists, attorneys, authors, and activists, bringing you nothing but the hard truth about vaccines and their risks. And the risk is real. Register today at wethepatriotsusa.org and tune in beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, September 13th.
We're today's news talk, the world today.
Okay, a very good morning too if you're in Australia, in the east coast of the US. It's just gone after 7. It's 9 after 7 in the evening, getting ready yet for another big day tomorrow or celebrating that day today. Our guest will be up fairly soon, Tyler Gray, just one of my favourite all-time guests. He's a great actor and a great man too, so very, very, very excited to do this. But before that, I don't know what Tyler's swing to which political side he's with, but what about this, the California? I mean, I'll be kind here. California, they had one of those terrible wildfires they have around Pacific Palisades and Malibu. It was just a disgusting, terrible, terrible thing to happen to people. Appalling what happened after, though. They had these concerts and they actually raised $800 million. $800 million. And not one victim has got any money directly yet. Not one victim. Think about it. $800 million. Cam, can you play Fire, please?
Just met with a great team of criminal investigators here at the IRS. If you asked FireAid for any money, you emailed them, please send me all your correspondence. If you bought tickets, merchandise, or donated to FireAid and you have the receipt, please email that evidence to info@prattdaddy.com. I repeat, if you are a fire victim in Altadena, Pacific Palisades, Pasadena, Malibu, any fire victims, and you reached out to FireAid, please send me those correspondence and then the correspondence of whoever FireAid told you to email. Thank you so much. Look forward to closing this case.
So that was Spencer Pratt, and good on him too. But for the criminal investigators from the IRS to be looking at this with interest, it does show you that quite possibly a crime has been committed. $800 million. The entire world saw the tragedy unfolding in California. It was just so sad, but to think though that after all those, and mainly from people in the US, of course, but in California, they went to concerts and raised money for their neighbours basically, and $800 million. And where has it gone? Where has it gone? I'm not going to blame Newsom here, but surely he would have taken more of an interest in this. Maybe not. Now, hotting up with the CDC, isn't it? With the we see now that Washington State has said that they're not going to remove mandates and that they can give children any age the vaccine without parental consent, which is just terrible. That's why people fought in wars for whether it's Australia, England, or UK, Canada or the US. You fight for your freedoms. That's why they lay down their lives. So, all hotting up at the moment. Dr. Scott Gottlieb says RFK Jr. could take down the whole pediatric vaccine enterprise. Can play pediatric.
What questions is Kennedy raising that are different, you think, than what President Trump raised?
Well, it's not the questions he's raising, it's the instruments he's putting in place to start restricting access to vaccines, getting control of the ACIP committee at CDC. He's going to put on the next agenda the hepatitis B vaccine, we all know. He's looking at MMRV vaccine, trying to obviate use of the MMRV vaccine, which is measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella. I believe he's going to claim in his autism report that there's an association between alum, which is the adjuvant used in most pediatric vaccines, and autism, which is going to set in place a litigation enterprise against the vaccines to potentially bankrupt the vaccine injury compensation program. So that could take down the whole pediatric vaccine enterprise. And he's been very systematic, very methodical, frankly, very effective, putting in place the people and the tools he needs to try to effectuate this goal. Look, he is an avowed anti-vaxxer. He spent 2 decades doing this. Sometimes you have to take people at their word. I think this is a mission of his, and there really hasn't been a lot of pushback until now, and this is mostly rhetorical pushback. No one's really stopped him from implementing these instruments of control.
When you say bring down the entire pediatric vaccine schedule, what do you mean?
Well, look, if he makes a move to say that there is a purported link between alum and the entire pediatric schedule, that adjuvant used in about 10 vaccines is no good alternative. He could force the vaccine manufacturers to try to reformulate the vaccines, decouple them. So instead of having MMR, you have measles, mumps, and rubella separately. Remember, we're in a situation right now, we're seeing declining vaccination rates. Last year, we had 35,000 cases of pertussis. The year before, it was 5,000. This year, we're expecting upwards of 75,000. So you're starting to see the vaccination rates declining, and you're starting to see the implications of that in terms of more disease. I think he's going to systematically go after, try to force manufacturers to reformulate and decouple some of these vaccines.
So it's getting very exciting in Washington. I think Robert Kennedy Jr. Is doing, I think, a pretty good job. Wasn't sure at one stage, but I mean, at least he's, as one of our politicians in Australia said, keeping the bastards honest. Finally, and also on vaccines, here's a report from 2006 about vaccines. And the percentage of seniors getting flu shots increased from 15% to 65%. And the flu deaths amongst the elderly should have taken a dramatic dip. Instead, it continued to climb. Cam, can you play flu deaths?
Here's what scientists have found. Over 20 years, the percentage of seniors getting flu shots increased sharply from 15% to 65%. It stands to reason that flu deaths among the elderly should have taken a dramatic dip, making an X graph like this. Instead, flu deaths among the elderly continue to climb. It was hard to believe, so researchers at the National Institutes of Health set out to do a study adjusting for all kinds of factors that could be masking the true benefits of the shots. But no matter how they crunched the numbers, they got the same disappointing result. Flu shots had not reduced deaths among the elderly. It's not what health officials hoped to find. NIH wouldn't let us interview the study's lead author, so we went to Boston and found the only co-author not employed by NIH, Dr. Tom Reichert.
We realized that we had incendiary material.
Dr. Reichert says they thought their study would prove vaccinations had helped.
We were trying to do something mainstream, that's for sure.
Were you surprised?
Astonished.
Did you check the data a couple of times to make sure?
Well, even more than that, we've looked at other countries now, and the same is true.
That study, soon to be published, finds the same poor results in Australia, France, Canada, and the UK. And other new research stokes the idea that decades of promoting flu shots in seniors and the billions spent haven't had the desired result. The current head of national immunizations confirms CDC is now looking at new strategies, but stops short of calling the present policy a failure.
There's an active dialogue into how we can do better to prevent influenza and its complications in the elderly.
So what's an older person to do? The CDC says they should still get their flu shots, that it could make flu less severe or prevent other problems not reflected in the total numbers. But watch for CDC to likely shift in the near future more toward protecting the elderly in a roundabout way by vaccinating more children and others around them who could give them the flu. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington.
So there you are. There's it's from 2006. Think about it. They were questioning the whole thing then. If you do it now, you're regarded as an anti-vaxxer, which I think is a very derogatory term for someone that wants to know what they're putting in their body. What we might do is not do a commercial break because I want to get into Tyler Gray, star of one of my all-time favourite TV shows. If ever you like playing with toy soldiers and stuff like that, SEAL Team was just was a magnificent show, and it actually got meatier and meatier at the end. They actually started using swear words, which I thought, beauty. I can relate to that. According to my wife, I cussed too many times. Tyler Gray is an actor, star of SEAL Team, former Delta Force operator, and author of Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. He is a leading advocate for veterans' mental health, specialising in PTSD and traumatic brain injury, TBI. He developed the LTSD theory, which explains chaos addiction and the neurological rewiring that occurs over time, helping veterans better understand their struggles. A former Tier 1 operator, Tyler's military career ended abruptly when he was seriously wounded during a nighttime raid in Sadr City in Iraq, leading to a gruelling 4-year recovery. Tyler, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, I have to thank you for many things. One, for service not only to your country, but to the entire global community. And secondly, for being in one of my favourite all-time TV shows. And it got meatier at the end. And I used to look at you and I used to think, I thought you were a very good actor, but I thought, I wonder what sort of military action you've had. And now I find out that you're a Delta Force guy, and you are king of all. Even SAS, they look up to Delta Force. But I think you get to a level, don't you, that you are extremely elite, and there's not much more above that. And I think SAS and Delta Force and other particular countries have their own versions of. Can I just ask you the takeaways you got from fighting for your country and also being a member of Delta Force? How did it hold you up in the future?
Yeah, well, I want to kind of mention what you said about, other countries. And, first of all, the my old unit was actually based on the British SAS, which is really the first modern counterterrorism unit, and really everything sprang off of the British SAS. And so we share a lot in common with them. But what's so interesting, having worked now for years while I was in, but now having talked to many, many, many counterterrorism or quote unquote special operators from around the world. What I've found, and this, by the way, is true whether it was SEALs in the U.S., SEALs, Marine Force Recon, etc., and that is, it's the same people. It's the same people, just different, military specializations. But if I, got a room full of guys from the British SAS, my old unit, some SEALs, and let's say some Aussie, two commandos and SAS, it's the same guys. Some maybe can swim better than others, and everyone has their own specializations. But by and large, it's the same people, and you see that over and over again. I've been to Poland and worked with the Grom, and it's really interesting to see how common the threads are between the men in those organizations. For me, to answer your question about what I learned, what I took away really is, I think many times in life when we think that things can't get, um, now when something happens to me, I just go, you know what? I've been more tired. I've been more hungry. I've been colder. I've been wetter. Nothing really at this point uh, phases me because I've been in worse situations. So I think what I really learned from that job was resilience, and that nothing. The only thing that truly breaks you is death. Other than that, it makes you stronger.
And it's all very well, people like when I actually got into Duntroon, but decided not to do it. I wanted to grow my hair long and stuff like that. My father was very disappointed, let me tell you. But we had a gentleman on a while back, and he said, "You can't control war," and politicians seem to think that they can control war. Because it said it has a mind of its own. Once it starts, it's going to go in different directions.
Yeah.
The excitement, I'll use that word because it probably sums it up, the excitement from a number of your politicians and other pollies around the world, look at Europe and the UK, on war. We're going to, for example, look at Russia. We're going to attack Russia. We're going to create war. Look at what's happening in the Middle East. It really is. It does, and it's probably to you. It amplifies it. It shows you coming from a position of absolute ignorance, and to think that war is going to actually, at the end of the day, fix that problem. It probably is just all fantasy. What's your thoughts on that one?
Well, I mean, that's a very complicated one. I mean, to kind of I don't know who it was, but to the person that you were talking about that said that, I 100% agree. I'll say it slightly differently. This is how I always explain it: is at the end of the day, war is a dirty business, and there's no way to do it clean. Period. And so, no matter what your intent is, if you send in, ground troops or even an airstrike, there's gonna be collateral damage because war is dirty, and there's just no way to do it clean. Now, granted, we've gotten, if you look at the strikes that the U.S. did against Iran. I mean, Iran didn't even complain about non-combatant deaths, and they always do. So that kind of shocked me that they didn't even go there with it. But where I'm going with it is, yes, technology has allowed us to get better, to do strikes, more precise. We're not firebombing Dresden like World War II, which was just an atrocity. But at the end of the day, even that precision guided, I think that lends people, politicians specifically, that aren't the people on the ground, to thinking it can be done so precise and so cleanly that they're more willing to take those risks and get their prospective countries into those battles, when the reality is as your person said, it's chaos, and you can't control chaos. And war, arguably, is the definition of chaos, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really interesting that we hear so much. When in fact we have some on our show at times talk. I mean, they're very good friends of us. We used to be another network until we got decimated from within. But we had a lot of intel ops, and we had a lot of military, ex-military, of course, who went to Blackwater or other areas. What makes? I mean, okay, two questions. What makes a person a great soldier, and what's the outcome when they come out of it? Because I mean, what we see is that all these, not all, but a great deal of these, or number of these people that we would have on as guest or host, they had PTSD. They had some sort of, it was something, it wasn't just quite right. And what we found, or what we observed, was that, for example, in this country and in other countries, I mean, even in the UK, we have decorated soldiers who are sort of shunted by their government. They haven't got that love that they need. Is that so? One, making of the soldier, what makes a soldier a great soldier, and two, when they get out of it, come out, are they the same, and is there enough government support?
So the questions that you just really asked me ultimately are what my book is about. Forged in Chaos. So the sad part, and before I get into directly answering your question, I want to set up this. What makes a soldier a great soldier, what makes a person great at war, is what makes them not great in society. And it's a very simple way to say it if you think about it. If this is a regular first world society, the US, Australia, the UK, and this is war, I think we can all agree that they're 180-degree opposites, right? So therefore, if you're good in this one, then by that sheer logic, you're going to be bad in this one. Conversely, if you're good in this one, you're going to be bad in this one. And the lie, the myth that is being propagated right now is the thought that you can bounce between both worlds and switch it on and off. And that's just not the way it works. It's not the way humans are designed. And so, in my opinion, what my book is about is I believe good soldiers come from bad childhoods, quite frankly, chaotic childhoods. The book, the title Forged in Chaos, wasn't chaos isn't war. Chaos was my childhood. And I can tell you, every single veteran that I know has the same general template of a childhood story. That adversity and that chaos in childhood makes you wired for chaos. So then when you get to war is chaos. But if you are already fundamentally wired from that, if you grew up in chaos, then you're able to manage it really well. A person that doesn't grow up in that chaos gets to war and they're chaotic. They're all over the place. They can't handle it. And so once you're raised in that environment, combat is that environment. You're very calm in chaos. Conversely, when you get out of the military and go back to regular first world society, you can't handle the calm. And the way that you calm yourself is by creating chaos back into the environment to bring you mentally back to your homeostasis, which is calm mentally when the environment is chaos. And that really is the description for the concept of LTSD that I came up with, which is lack of traumatic stress disorder.
Just before we go into that, actually, I have another question for you. So if we look at what's happening in the Middle East, not taking any sides at all, just what the war there, the killing there, and if you look at what's happening in, say, in Europe and in Ukraine, the war there. When they talk about peace, or ceasefire then peace, if that's ever achievable, do you think, from what you've said, that they're either good in war but not good in peace, or good in peace but not good in war? Do you think that's got a? Do you think it's a long shot? It's a Hail Mary, as they would say, to actually get peace in those regions that have had years, if not decades, of killing?
I think the politicians are separate from the soldiers. So, the politicians are the ones that start the wars, and the politicians are also ultimately the ones that create the peace. And the mechanism that is designed within that is, in wartime, you're going to give people that chaos, and then when you go back to peacetime, you're going to, you look at the Vietnam War in the U.S., and it created a lot of issues in the 80s with veterans coming home after the war. And so it really isn't up to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, peace doesn't have a better or worse chance because of the soldier. It has always the chances based on how politicians are willing to negotiate with each other. And the sad reality is that we don't have a lot of say in whether we go to war or we go to peace.
Actually, I'll ask you this: what did you think of Iraq? Was that a waste of resources and human life?
It's one of those things where I look at it and I know enough now to know that my opinion is largely irrelevant. I learned at my level in the government that there's a lot of things happening that I was unaware of, and a lot of things happening that, quite frankly, I'll probably never be aware of. All I can control, I can't control the bigger picture of why we were there and if it was a loss of life or not. I can't control that. All I can do is control my mentality of what I did there. And while I was there, I tried to do the best I could, help the most people I could. And if there was, bad people, I didn't do anything in that environment that I look back and regret on. And so that's the only thing I control, is what I personally did. And I think that is kind of necessary. If I was in Afghanistan as well. A lot of veterans are going to struggle greatly if they put their perspective of Afghanistan on how it ended. It's going to create a lot of trauma. And so for me, a big part of my, healing journey, and a big part of the book, is really accepting only what we have control over and our direct responsibility, because anything outside of that is ultimately out of our control. And if you try and focus on it too much, it'll just drive you crazy.
We had some Brits, one with the Irish Guard, and another with the regular army. Basically, anyway, he said when they fought in Afghanistan, they would often use locals to help, people that would help them. And what they've done now in the UK and other countries around the world is because of the withdrawal, they also looked after a lot of those that helped those particular soldiers, whether it's a squad or a platoon or whatever. They actually did the right thing by them. But they also brought up, they said it was a little nervy at times, because, and this is coming from both highly decorated soldiers. They said we were very nervous because it wasn't uncommon for one of your local what do you call them, helpers, or
it'd be ANA, or partner forces.
They would shoot some of the British guys in the back. Which would, I don't know about you, but make me very nervous. I mean, you're a Delta Force guy, so nothing makes you nervous.
No, I mean, things absolutely make you nervous. I mean, it's very difficult. I'd say there's few things more difficult than being forced to work with people. And again, it's really complicated. If you're working with a partner force, by and large, and I'm going to guesstimate percentages, but I'm going to say by and large, the majority of people in any country, and Iraq and Afghanistan included, most of those people they don't want any problems. They want to raise their family and do their thing and stay out of, conflict. That's the majority of people in really any and every country I've ever been to. That being said, there is a minority everywhere that just wants to mess everything up for everyone. And that's no different in America or anywhere in the world. And so, in those working with those partner forces, you have a lot of guys that are, trying. I can tell you a firsthand story that's in my head of a guy that was in Afghanistan. He was reading books by George Washington, and what he wanted more than anything was for his country, to be more free. And and he just was a great guy. And it's so sad that, ultimately in his unit, there was a person that ended up taking someone, an American's life. And so it's really hard not for you on the ground to kind of lump everyone and to stereotype and kind of categorize. And yet it's generally the exception rather than the rule. But you have to protect yourself. So it's a difficult balance to strike.
Yeah, I see the connector here, or the conduit here, not being good, is government. And if you look at the British government, they've brought in 100,000 soldiers and families and stuff, not soldiers, but people that helped from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And it was going to be, I think, 7,000 or something. And then they decided to bring all their family and relatives and probably goats and chickens and stuff. But they brought them over to the UK. Now, if you follow anything from the UK, there is no. It's going through a tough time because housing, public housing, and just housing. It's very hard now. There were reports, not reports. It's been verified that some soldiers were asked to leave their government abode and make room for some of these people from Afghanistan, which I would see government again being the conduit there, but not a good one at all. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, look, I'll say this, what I'm seeing in the UK right now is, exactly why the US revolted, a couple hundred years ago. It's insanity. The stuff that they're doing, putting people in jail for social media. It's honestly hard as an American to process that. And it's, if you look at our military relationship, or really our country relationship with the UK, it's very close. And yet what they're doing in so many ways is so asinine and counter to obvious common sense that I just don't understand it. I don't live there full time, and I don't know the details of it. But they have a serious issue going on right now with suppressing free speech. And if they're doing that, then they're doing a lot more. I mean, that's so egregious that it just makes me wonder what else that government is currently doing against the people, because it's shocking that today a country like the UK could do something so blatantly, ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, it is, and I think of the. In fact, we know some of the soldiers, those that were exited from their abode. They weren't travelling all that well. And so that's why at the start I said, can the government do more to help its soldiers? Because you guys, we have a saying in Australia, and this will confuse the rest of the world. We say you are the ants' pants, and you are truly, whether you're a private or a major or a captain or whatever. I don't know about the generals because I'm not too sure about the up the very top. But the ones that boots on ground and put their lives on the line, you deserve the entirely utmost respect from your country and the entire world community. Which gets me back to one more thing. Yeah. Sorry, I mean, we've got a bit of time here. So we have a guy here, David McBride. David McBride was with the British SAS. He was a major there, and is a major with the Australian SAS. Saw action, or went to various places of conflict for both armies, both governments. Anyway, he was also a lawyer, but he also did some of the hard yard stuff too. He released some names after going to the top brass on evidence that he had, and it was all verified that there were some Australian troops that actually basically murdered some innocent people. And I know war's war and stuff happens, but they did the wrong thing, according to David. I believe David, and he's a very good guy. Anyway, he was charged for being a whistleblower, for telling the truth, and in his mind and many others' mind, doing his duty for his country, that being Australia. So now he's in jail. He had to had to plead guilty on some technical thing, and that's how they jailed him. What's your views on because I know that Delta Force and SAS, they're sworn, I mean, what happens stays there. But what's your views on someone releasing that information after going to the very top brass, right up to the very top, and told to go away, and nothing happened? So the ones that did the crime walked away from it. What's your views on whistleblowers actually, at the end of the day, releasing that information because some very bad things had happened and innocent people were killed?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, this is just my opinion on it. I mean, this is a tough one, and I'm going to say this, and I hope people understand what I'm about to say, because I understand both sides. I'm not saying I agree, completely with either side, but I definitely understand both sides. On one hand, I absolutely, people that do, bad things, especially, war crimes and atrocities, should be held accountable. Absolutely. On the other hand, it's hard, in my opinion, having been in that environment, it's hard to judge people on, most people don't understand what it's like. Imagine being in a place where if you shoot somebody in the head, let's just say you just shoot somebody, there's no sirens, there's no 911, there's no CSI, nothing's going to happen. I don't think most people can conceive of what it's like to be in an environment where there's really no rules or ramifications. And it's very difficult, in my experience, for everyone to find their own rules and morality within an environment that has no external rules or morality. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
As I said, I didn't do anything that I regretted at all. Nothing, zero. But I can say that I was very fortunate to kind of see what I'm explaining and go, oh, you got to be careful here. You know what I mean? You could easily go down a rabbit hole. You could go to a dark place, and I did see it happen to a degree, not to the degree obviously we're talking about in this story. So I understand both sides, and I also understand how a person could say, "Hey, someone made a mistake. They did some horrible things, but hey, those people that they killed, were responsible for killing one of the, there's a tit for tat in that environment. So I would really have to know the ins and outs and the details to really judge on a deeper level. So right now, I'll just say I understand both sides of it. People do need to be held accountable, but I can also see how many would look at him and go, "Oh, he broke the code." That being said, I definitely understand both sides of it.
Yeah, he's a fantastic person and very, very. I think he's a very honest person. Your book, Forged in Chaos: A Warrior's Origin Story, was that sort of? Did it take a lot off your own shoulders? Did you just by by, it's almost like going to confession, but also because you helped people, you identified a cause here. So therefore, it wasn't just a book on not self-reflection, because it's not that, but it wasn't just going to confession and feeling good that you've confessed you've got things off your chest or whatever. Did it actually? How did you feel after you finished it, and what was the motivation to actually write the book?
I'll answer it in reverse. So the motivation to write it really was, and I had been writing it for years. I'd been, writing in journals and all these different things. And I didn't really have an ending for a long time, for over a decade. And it wasn't until I really started figuring out things in my own journey and figuring out major pieces of the puzzle that were just, not common knowledge. And once I felt like I had good answers for myself, and then once I had solutions to, the real problem rather than, the problem we keep putting out there that we're told it is, once I had those answers and those solutions, then it was very obvious to me that I needed to put it in a book to try and put out there what has worked for me. And hopefully the book can be a light in the dark for those that are in the dark, like I was for so many years. far as me putting it out, it was a very strange process. I kind of just put everything in there, and to be honest, I didn't really think much about the amount of my own life story that I put in there. I mean, I've had multiple people read it and say, "I cannot believe you put this out there." I mean, I talk about some pretty personal things, and it really didn't mean anything to me. But I can tell you, after the book was out there, rereading or reading it as a story, it actually allowed me to experience my life on a more reflective sense that I didn't that actually helped me in my journey, but I didn't know that until after it was done. So that wasn't the intent, but it definitely gave me some more perspective on on my past that I didn't expect.
If someone's addicted to chaos, and I mean, we all have, I mean, here we have chaos every day, but it's quite manageable. The chaos you're talking about is a lot more deeper than that. How do you control or fix the addiction to chaos?
It's a great question. So I think the first part that is very critical to say. So when you grew up if you grew up in a chaotic childhood environment like I did, and so many veterans or even first responders did, your initial instinct once you figure that out is, like you said, I need to fix that. I am calm when things are chaotic. When the environment's chaotic, I'm calm. And then so you go, okay, well, I need to somehow change myself to where I can somehow become, calm when things are calm and chaotic when things are chaotic. That's kind of like the initial instinct. And what I've realized now is that's not really how it works. Once you're kind of formed, once your brain wiring adapts to that chaos as a child, it's not really going to change back. And so it's not about trying to reverse that wiring. What it's about is choosing healthier chaos, right? And that's what I really focus on in the book, is explaining. For me, it wasn't about not choosing chaos anymore. It was about how to choose more healthy chaos and be aware of the decisions that I was making and what I was doing, rather than just randomly giving into addictions or workaholic behavior, or going on a motorcycle and riding 120 miles an hour at night because I was bored or things were calm. So it's really about understanding the mechanisms and the cause and effect, and once you do, you can make healthier choices, and that's worked for me.
What is LTSD? Because I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, what is it?
So LTSD, everyone was telling me you have PTSD. Obviously, you know what PTSD, we all know what PTSD stands for. And I had heard that probably hundreds of times at a certain point. And I finally said, okay, what does that mean? And obviously I knew the words, but I said, clinically, tell me exactly what it means on a clinical sense. And they explained it to me. And I went, okay, that's not how I feel. And let me give you an example on this. If I had PTSD from combat, now PTSD, first of all, is an event-based diagnosis. It must be based on an event. And so if I had PTSD from, let's say, my getting blown up, if I had PTSD from that, I would avoid anything and everything that had to do with combat, the military, but I don't. In fact, I love playing first person shooter video games. I go to the range. I don't avoid it. I steer towards that. If I get with a bunch of friends that we were in combat with, we'll tell stories to each other. That doesn't really fit in what PTSD is supposed to be. And so it never quite fit me. And I basically said, I'm going to figure out something that fits how I feel, not try and take how I feel and fit it to that diagnosis. And what I came up with is, the first word of post-traumatic stress disorder is post. Post-traumatic stress disorder, we don't really think about it, but it assumes a pre-traumatic stress non-disorder. You can't have post-traumatic stress disorder unless you have pre-traumatic stress non-disorder, right? And what I figured out is, for myself and all those that were raised in a chaotic environment, we never had a pre-traumatic stress baseline. We grew up in chaos. So what LTSD stands for is lack of traumatic stress disorder. When chaos is in the environment, I am calm. Yet when the environment is calm, I become chaotic. And that is what LTSD explains. LTSD is not, and it's my own theory, I made it up, but it is an environmental, diagnosis, not an event-based one. And when an environment is consistent, our brains and bodies adapt to it. So as children in chaos, our brains and bodies adapted to normalize chaos, so we weren't chaotic in that environment because we needed to survive. So LTSD is explaining essentially the myth or the problem in PTSD is assuming that everyone has the same baseline, but we don't. And that's LTSD was created to try and explain why veterans create so much chaos. And currently it's thrown in PTSD, but once you see it through the creating chaos LTSD light, it really changes your understanding of why you're doing what you're doing.
How did you work through it? What were your steps?
Well, it's first of all, it's very easy for me. The book, people read the book and they go, "Oh my gosh, this makes sense and this makes sense." But I want to be very clear. Obviously, I didn't know any of this. This is, the book's written from the eyes of hindsight. When I was going through it all, I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. LTSD was the first piece of the puzzle, for lack of a better term, that made me go, oh, I now know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And once I knew why, then it allowed me to have some agency of choice over my decision. When people were just like, oh yeah, PTSD, and I was doing, crazy stuff, people would go, oh yeah, he's just kind of out there. He's crazy. He was in the war. He's got PTSD. Once I learned that it was creating chaos to take me back, to my homeostasis mentally, then that allowed me all the more understanding and control over how I was going to decide to do those behaviors. And it really changed my entire life at that point.
Some of the again, I would say we've had plenty of soldiers on, military people on that have had PTSD, and some not even military have had that too. What are some of the misconceptions in treating PTSD and TBI?
Well, I'll say this to your PTSD point, and this is kind of a critical point I want to make about it, is that PTSD is not specific to the military. It is anyone can have PTSD for damn near anything. I mean, that's just the reality. And so logically, if you look at that and go, well, if anyone can have PTSD for almost anything, why are we looking at veterans and saying that that's our specific and only problem? The fact is, it isn't. And in fact, not only is it not, but the more resources we pour in to the wrong, PTSD at best is a symptom. It's not the core disease. And I can prove that relatively easily. And so the reason that this problem isn't getting dramatically better in the veteran community is because we're shining a light on the wrong problem, in my opinion. And what my book is really trying to do is raise awareness and give actual solutions and offer some explanations outside of just trying to fit our entire problem into 4 letters.
Yeah, I know that we're running out of time. I've got about 10,000 things I could talk to you about. Truly, I find this fascinating.
No,
Can I just ask you a couple more minutes, but the addicted to chaos, and that being part of the reason why a lot of people join the military.
Yeah.
Should the selection process be different? Is it all that wise to select people who are addicted to chaos?
Oh, they're already doing that. That they already know this. I can tell you that for sure. The military knows. There's no doubt. I mean, having gone through quite a few selection processes, the military knows this. There's a reason. If you go in the U.S. and you look at recruiting signs, they know where the people are coming from. They're not recruiting. They're not putting up signs for the Marines and the Army in the Hamptons. Okay, they know that the Midwest and the South and the inner cities, they know that's where we're coming from. They know that the homes that have the picture perfect kids and families, those are the kids getting going to college. Those aren't the kids joining in the military to get college paid for maybe one day. They absolutely know what they're doing. They're recruiting intentionally from these types of family home environments. And again, it is what it is. I'm not saying by any means that I or any veteran is or was a victim. That being said, I can definitely tell you they very much know. They've figured this out. There's no doubt in my mind.
Absolutely fascinating. I would imagine your book's available at Amazon and all other good and bad bookstores.
Yes. And I've just relatively recently, the Audible book that I read myself is on Amazon. Pretty proud of that one, just because I got talked into doing the reading, and I'm glad I did, because I do think it makes a difference when, especially considering a lot of the book is my inner dialogue in my head. And really, the book's about doubt and self-doubt and trying to overcome your own worst enemy, which for me, for many years, was myself.
Absolutely amazing. Just quickly, what do you do now with yourself? I mean, you fought for your country, almost died for your country. You fought with the most elite force on the planet. Someone said, quote, the most deadly force on the planet. You've been in TV show or SEAL team and as an actor, written a book. What do we do now?
Yeah, so now I'm really doing more of the same. I really look at the responsibility of storytelling to really try and help people. SEAL Team, I was a producer on the show as well as an actor. I was a writer on the last season, and so for me, it was Hollywood's going to make stories about veterans whether we're involved or not, and so I think it's a big responsibility to work with Hollywood and really make sure that they get those stories right, so they can portray veterans in the military in a more accurate sense, as well as, quite frankly, inspire the next generation of warriors, just like I was inspired for years by television and movies. I don't think people realize that Hollywood is the single largest psyops campaign the world has ever known. No one really sees it that way, but it is.
It's absolutely
For
amazing.
better and worse.
Well, I agree, and that's for another discussion. But I have to say, the last series of SEAL Team, because I truly watched every one of them.
Well, thank you.
And it started off, I have to say, it was just typical. I think it was CBS, typical CBS stuff. The last series was it explored all areas, and it makes sense with your input as not only as a writer but as a producer. Everybody who were a fan of that show so disappointed it didn't go to the next series because it was getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, look, really there was a lot of factors. The biggest single factor I can tell you was the strike that happened. That was the biggest single factor, and there's many small pieces. But at the end of the day, it wasn't anything to do with the fan base or how the show was doing. It was a business decision based on many factors. Like I said, the strike was probably the biggest. But I'll just say I've got other things coming up that I've been working on with some names that you would know, and I'm very excited about the projects that I'll be launching in Hollywood in the future. And people can stay tuned because I'm just getting started on that note.
Good on you, mate. That's fantastic. Just quickly, what about socials and stuff? Somebody wanted to find out.
Yeah, Instagram.
How do they do that?
Yeah, Instagram, Tyler A. Gray, Gray with an E. And pretty much any social media, Tyler A. Gray, Gray with an E. And my website is also Tyler A. Gray, graywithane.com. And thank you so much for having me.
Tyler Gray, I've got to say, I've been looking forward to this. And when you were stuck in traffic last week, I almost cried.
Oh yeah, it was a bad one. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. It's fantastic. Author of Forged in Chaos: A Warrior's Origin Story, available at all good and bad bookstores. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is The World Today.